And now just to introduce our president, Professor Hugh Brady, to deliver some opening remarks.
Thank you, Ollie, and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us here at the Institution of Civil Engineers for the Centre for Sectoral Economics Performance second annual conference. As has been said, I'm Hugh Brady. I've had the honour of being president of Imperial now for 4 years. Time really does fly, and of course we're really honoured to host the centre. So it's a pleasure to join you and to give the opening remarks for this event. As you all know, today's conference will focus on how academia, industry, and can work with government to accelerate the implementation of government's landmark and much welcomed industrial strategy, which was announced earlier this year. You'll hear this over the day from leaders from Imperial, from our partner institutions, from industry, and from government about a wide range of high growth potential sectors in British industry that CSEP is currently researching, and how we can give them the best chance of being world leading and promoting growth here in the UK. The UK government's primary overarching and driving mission is appropriately economic growth. And this is something that we really welcome the opportunity to partner with government on. For those of you who don't know Imperial, or certainly don't know our founding mission, our founding mission in 1907 was, and I quote, "to be useful," which I think just what a wonderful understatement of everything that our university has achieved over a century or more. But at that time, it was particularly to be useful to industry. And that spirit continues to be what drives us today. We pride ourselves not just being a world-leading university, and I am going to mention rankings, because we were very pleased that we're second in the prestigious QS ranking again this year, first in the UK, first in Europe, and on MIT's coattails, trying to get that number one spot. But actually, much more important to us is we pride ourselves in being a world-changing institution, trying to harness the power of science and technology to make the world a safer, healthier, smarter, more prosperous, and more sustainable place. And that ambition is captured in our strategy, Science for Humanity, where we set out our plans, our ambitious plans to maximize the impact of our work for the good of society and for the good of the planet. Now, going back to the theme of the industrial strategy and very much the priority for CSEP, growth and productivity underpin everything that we as a society want to achieve. But it's an incontrovertible truth that the rate at which we're growing and the productivity challenge that faces the UK are really kind of existential threats really to our economy and to our society. Growth provides the room and the capacity for us to reinvest in our public services, whether that's in our schools or in our National Health Service. It gives us the capacity to invest and fund cutting-edge R&D that takes place in our institutions such as Imperial, which benefits not only the UK, but the rest of the world. It's required to reinforce and upgrade our critical infrastructure, whether that be roads, railways, bridges, or flood defences. Growth is required to ensure that we're adequately and credibly protected and prepared to defend ourselves against hostile actors abroad, unfortunately becoming more and more important. And not least, growth is required to invest in the technologies and bold initiatives that will allow us to decarbonise and radically improve our biodiversity for the sake of ourselves and for the sake of our planet. But economic growth and productivity have either stagnated or risen at far too low a rate for far too long. Since the global economic crisis, the global financial crisis, Britain's growth has lagged behind many of its G7 peers. And this has stunted the capacity of the state to deliver some of its most basic and its most fundamental functions. And we see that playing out in politics and the challenges for government today. So the need for concerted action is, I hope you agree, really, really clear. And the government has demonstrated its understanding of the challenge at hand and its commendable ambition to do something about it with its publication of the industrial strategy and the supplementary sector plans that followed. But as government itself recognises, it just simply cannot do this alone. Meaningful change can only be achieved through close partnership with experts and leaders from across industry and across academia, both in the development and, really importantly, the implementation of policy. At Imperial, we have the people, the resources, very importantly, the partners that will support the government's fundamental growth mission. And that's what CSEP is all about. Creating that nexus between academia, industry and government to produce strategies for sectors in which the UK can be truly world leading and lay the foundation for economic growth sector strategies that are consultative, that are comprehensive, that are coherent, clear, actionable, ambitious, and above all, effective. Industrial strategy is about identifying strengths and competitive edges and then doubling down on them. So I look forward to seeing CSEP continue to work with government and industry in this important endeavour. And we consider it both a privilege and obligation to be in that position to do so. So thank you again for joining us here today for what will undoubtedly be a fascinating day of presentations and discussions. Before closing, though, I should say that CSEP would not, and ourselves would not be here today were it not for the generous support and the vision and the trust of the Gatsby Charitable Foundation and Lord Sainsbury. So David, from us all, thank you for challenging and supporting us in equal measure in this endeavour. I'll now hand over to our Director of CSEP, Nigel Stewart. Nigel.